One of the biggest problems we have is that we are so identified with these bodies that we think the body is who we are. And that's one of the formless problems that we could talk about some more, and we'll talk about some more. And because the bodies, one of the things about the bodies is that they're all separate, right? The Course says minds can join, bodies cannot. We may have fun trying to make them join, but there's a limit to that too, right? So it's only on the level of mind that we really can know what the oneness is. That doesn't mean we don't enjoy being together. In fact, is what do you want to do when some of you just went through the 4th of July and et cetera, you might have got together with friends, really just as an opportunity of sharing. There is this line in the Course where it says, divine abstraction, another name for God, takes joy in sharing. And sharing really is our greatest joy, right? You could take you away from, quote, loneliness. But loneliness, I must add too, in terms of the Course, must be understood that sometimes you may be very well connected when you're alone. Mystics can be very well connected, although they may very well be alone. By that I simply mean because they have an awareness of the connection with the Holy Spirit. And that connection, so that means you're not isolated. You know, the love of God is there regardless of what else may be going on in the world. And you can communicate at 24/7 with the Holy Spirit or with God. That's always a connection. And there may be times in which you will feel connected in nature and with music. You can find lots of different ways in which that may occur. Of course, we tend to really enjoy it when it happens with another person. I say that in the book on mysticism back there. Mystics enjoy meeting other mystics. And it's really true, you do enjoy meeting other mystics because of the sharing that can occur it's like meeting somebody who speaks your language. You know, it's so much more fun to be able to do that than to be in a situation where folks don't speak your language. And I'm not talking about language. I mean, I'm not talking about Spanish and English. You know, I'm talking about attitude and philosophy and ways of looking at life and ways of thinking about life. And you know, we enjoy talking to people whose thought patterns run in the same kind of form that our thought patterns run in, and who have been exploring. One of the most fun things about doing A Course in Miracles, and I think about being a human being and writing and talking and coming to workshops and lectures and stuff, is that you get a chance to move deeper into these ideas, and there's almost no end to it. I mean, I just got through saying that you can get to a point with Bill and with Ken where you complete the atonement. But Bill and Ken did a lot of sharing. It was interesting, Bill, after Bill retired Bill was head of the Department of Psychology at Columbia. It's a very prestigious position. But he's gay. And so this was in the 60s, and not like now. And he moved to California, started wearing blue jeans instead of suits, and being with people that were more like-minded. And he would often attend Course in Miracles study groups, but he wouldn't try to guide the group or direct the group, or he'd just be there. It's kind of in the presence, and people would turn to him when they really wanted to have a deeper question that needed to be answered, but he wouldn't feel any need to blurt it out. You understand what I'm saying? It was just sort of this knowing presence about him. I remember once sitting with Helen on a couch. I think it was at Judy Whitson's house. And I don't know why, but Helen and I were holding hands. I think she was probably trying to comfort me over a love situation or something. And I look up and Bill is standing there smiling at the two of us, just this big, wearing a cardigan sweater, just kind of all, just being Bill, just being love, just being present, well, I guess you got what I'm talking about, right? Okay, let's do a few more. Feel free to interrupt me though from this point on if you want, okay? For eyes and ears are senses without sense, and what they see and what they hear but report. It is not they that hear and see, but you. And that's a very important point. It's not the senses, it's the interpreter that we want to look at, who put together every jagged piece, each senseless scrap and shred of evidence, and made it a witness to the world you want. Who's the one who puts all of this information together? I think it's interesting, Helen Keller, who was both blind and deaf. Can you imagine to lose even one of those senses, but to lose two, like primary relationship with the world senses, said, I thank God for my handicaps, for through it I found myself, my work, and my God. My God. To be able to say, I thank God for my handicaps, right? Because in her case, it was her door. See, Helen Keller had to go in. There was no out to go out to, right? So she had to go in. I mean, in meditation, so to speak, in deep, and there's where she found God, right? Incredible that was true for her. So then we go to our well-known one. Projection makes perception. We've seen this a lot in the past. It's probably, I quote this more than any other three sentences or three words in the Course. It appears twice in the projection comes from perception, and perception is a fundamental law of the mind. And then, this is Jesus speaking, if I intervene between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect, the most fundamental law there is. We've already recognized this. I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your thinking. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of the Course. People will sometimes, well, why doesn't God prevent that hurricane? Or why doesn't God intervene in this situation or that situation? Well, it can't, because that's not the thing to do. That'd be magic, right? And there's no magic. We're talking about miracles, and miracles are something that happens in the mind. It is much more helpful to remind you that you do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. That's a very important last line. You do not guard your thoughts carefully enough. Remember, our passively condoning our mind's miscreations, right? It's so easy for us to do that. So, as Shakespeare said, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And so it's the thinker who determines. The thinker, like a Helen Keller, can find God in there, and another thinker can have a heck of a lot of judgments to make about this world. So let's talk a little more about judgment. So judgment is the process on which perception, but not knowledge, rests. I'm going to play teacher for a moment. Why does judgment, which perception but not knowledge, rest? Why is that sentence true? Somebody?
Can you repeat that again?
Oh, okay. I'm just asking. The first sentence, judgment is the process on which perception but not knowledge rests. So I'm asking you, as students, why is that sentence true? Okay, we got here. Where's our mic? Over here. Eddie has a comment. Okay, done. Why don't you just stand up?
I'm standing right here.
I know, but face the people.
So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, there's a difference with what you think and what you know.
Right.
That's the way I'm interpreting
Okay.
this then, okay?
Right.
So because I judge something to be doesn't mean that I know it is.
Right, exactly. So we've already said that knowing is not something about which there's evaluation or judgment. It's a pure thing. You know when you're in love, you know that there is a God. It's a pure thing. So it does not involve evaluation. There's no judgments that needs to be made within that context. So who is the interpreter, the translator, the explicator, the evaluator, the judge? Perception is inherently judgmental. I mean, we literally judge everything that we see, constantly, all the time. You walk out on the street, when you leave here today, you're going to be walking down the street making a jillion judgments about a nice-looking car, or that's pretty, that's ugly, that's not very nice, that's wonderful, pretty flower, or whatever it is. Four men can be standing on a street corner. Another friend drives by in a new car. One thinks, wish I had that car. Another one thinks, where'd you get that money? Another one thinks, how lucky for my friend. Another thinks, I'm so jealous. What? All of these possibilities about one that just come from the mind, right? So judgment is not an attribute of God at all. God does not judge, since God creates is perfect, innocent, or true perception. The Course does talk about what it calls true perception and innocent perception, which sees as God does. I think of innocent perception as, I have a new granddaughter who was born on 9/11, which gives a whole new meaning to 9/11 for me. And just holding her this week, she's pre-verbal, of course, at this point, just looking, and she's just looking, there's just these big eyes that are, and you're falling right in love with these big eyes, and I mean, how could you not be? But she doesn't have words. So seeing how there's no words to put together, to create a judgment. There's just looking, there's just seeing, there's just a kind of beingness that's there. And I think that we all probably, if you think about it, are capable of going back to a time when that was true for all of us. But it's not something we can really talk about, right?
That's why the Bible says we all must return as little children.
Right, unless you become as little children. Exactly. So, beyond perception, there's no judgment. When we judge the reality of others, we judge ourselves. When we forgive others, we forgive ourselves. The choice to judge rather than to know is the cause of the loss of peace. Then interesting, the last line, the choice to judge rather than to know is the cause of the loss of peace. So try watching the news without making any judgments.
Which one am I watching the news?
Right, or you can not watch the news as well, but I'm just saying, if you are watching the news, try to do it without judgment, one way or the other, right? Or whatever it is that you're looking at. So, judgment always means rejection. So on the heels of there comes persecution, like a 2-year-old in a temper tantrum. The ego grumbles, whines, nags, and moans its life away. Seeing the problem on the outside, I do not have to look to the source of the problem within. Only a miracle, only forgiveness can set us free. Somewhat, I like Einstein saying, stay away from negative people. They see a problem for every solution. Right? So you have no idea of the deep peace and that comes from meeting yourself and your brother totally without judgment. We said that. When you recognize what you are and what your brothers are, you will realize that judging them in any way is without meaning. In fact, their meaning is lost to you precisely because you are judging them. Okay? You do not need judgment to organize your life, and you certainly don't need it to organize yourself. All right, so not only does projection make perception, premise one, premise two, perception is a choice. That phrase appears 3 times in the Course. Perception is a choice. In the workbook 351, it says, my sinless brother is my guide to peace, my sinful brother is my guide to pain. Think about that for a second. If you're seeing somebody sinless, it's peaceful. If you're seeing someone as sinful, it's painful. For you, the one who sees it, right? So, let's remember that projection makes perception, and perception is a choice, and there are 2 kinds of projection. There's condemnation, which judges the world as bad. This is blame, shame, denunciation, disapproval, criticism, war, attack, punishment, persecution. And there's a kind of judgment, a kind of projection that the Course talks about, which is the right kind of projection. And it's called extension. And extension simply means love. I'm just extending love. We're just extending love. We're just giving, that's what we're seeing. This is the Holy Spirit of Christ's vision in the form of forgiveness or peace. Okay, let's go a little bit further. So, if projection makes perception, and perception is a result and not a cause, perception is a mirror, not a fact, we simply cannot judge with the reality of others without judging ourselves. Right? Just for a moment last night, I was up there, I came downstairs and my wife was watching The Godfather. And I just stopped and watched that for a few minutes, and oh my God. It was all hate and anger and attack and misery and pain and horrible thoughts and deeds were being done, and those folks living in hell. They may have been in a body on planet Earth temporarily, but they're still living in hell, right? Okay, so innocence or true perception means that you must perceive and always see truly. More simply, it means that you never see what does not exist and always see what does. The only thing that exists in that sense is love. And that's the only pure perception, correct perception. So true or innocent perception sees with the mind of God rather than seeing through the constructs of the ego. And one's pitiful, meaningless private thoughts. The Course talks about our pitiful, meaningless private thoughts, which attract us to the world, thus blocking out perception of God. Again, one of my favorite lines from the Course, the last line of lesson 52, which I quote every now and then. This is something you're supposed to say to yourself. Would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe? That's a very interesting phrase, because what is the thinking of the universe? Yeah, would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe than to continue to obscure, that means to block or to darken, all that's really mine with my pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts? Pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts is not a happy place to live in. It's a sort of a sick and sad world. It's a lonely world as well. A friend always dreamed of owning a certain sports car, and finally, after several years, he was able to buy it. He drove home thinking, that's it? I did it? I got it? Now what? I mean, it's like, you get what the world can offer you, and what do you got? Something that didn't bring him any peace of mind, really. The fact that he was able to achieve something that for years he thought was something that he had to have in his life, right?
John,
Yeah.
what that points to is something the Course says, that you may not always know or identify the thinking of the ego, but there's one thing that we all are sure of. Everything the ego has ever brought us, it has never satisfied us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That includes everything, right? I have a friend who had sort of reached the top of his profession, and he was given an award. By the way, he does regard himself as being enlightened, and he may be. I don't know that he's not. John Mark Stroud. He walks off the stage with the award, and he said he fell into this deep darkness. It's like, that's it? I got it? I got the money? Yeah, now what? Now what? In the Beatitudes, Matthew 5:8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. We see as we become completely open-minded and non-judgmental. So some of you know that in 2007 I had encephalitis. And my wife and I were talking about it the other night. And I said, yes, it was a wonderful time. And she said, well, it may have been a wonderful time for you, but it wasn't a wonderful time for me. What was wonderful about it was that I stopped thinking. I completely stopped thinking. Do you ever look at, I found this guy's picture online of somebody who's awake coming out of a coma. I was in a coma for a long time. So, but it was like so wonderful. Because when you awaken, you're just there. It's like being an infant again, just eyes on the world and just seeing, and everything was new and interesting. And I thought the angels, that was an interesting slip. I thought the nurses were angels. I really did. I saw them as angels. It took me a moment to realize that they were.
I know that movie. I forgot the name. It's a great movie.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's a picture.
Recognize that image?
Could be. So, but there was no analysis, no interpretation. It was several days before I really, and I've told this, but you know what brought me back? Really brought me back to planet Earth? And my wife said, I actually talked about this quite a bit once I came out of it. She said, you said, I've got bills to pay. That was the sobering thought. I looked at my little 2-year-old grandchild this week and thought, you don't have any bills to pay. And when will the day come that you'll recognize, I got bills to pay? All right? So, the preamble to UNESCO, the United Nations Economic, Social, and Cultural Organization, begins with the phrase, wars begin in the minds of men. If wars begin in the minds of men, then the obvious thing is, where do wars end? Right? I'm just going to do 2 more, and then we're going to... Actually, I'm going to skip to this one and share with you about this, and then we'll just dialogue for 5 minutes and we'll be at the end of our time. So, it is impossible to define God, but it's possible to know God. St. Thomas Aquinas, whose dates are very easy to remember, I always thought, oh, how convenient, exactly 50 years to when it comes to remembering it, right? Regarded as the father of the Catholic Church. His writings, the Summa Theologica, is the basis of Catholic theology. Had a profound mystical experience a few months before he died, and after the experience he said that all of his writings were so much straw. After that he could only say, God is.
Amen.
And by the way, the Catholic Church is built on that straw. So I want to stop because we've only got 5 minutes and just see if any Yes, can you take the mic back to this lady?
Okay, I have a question.
Mhm.
How does one get to that place of not judging?
By judging.
By judging, it seems, what I'm thinking about it is that all my judgments and perceptions are learned.
Right.
And so it seems a shift
Got
is
it.
needed.
Well, the best answer, I think, to that is catch yourself and stop it, 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 catch yourself and stop it. In other words, yeah, okay, thanks. You just keep seeing that you're doing it. And then you stop it. And then you can, kind of be free of it for a moment. Be very aware, especially in one of those conversations that are happening at a party or something, let's say, right? And then just sort of watch it, and you'll see it before it comes out. You know how it is, the thought appears, and then there's that moment in there that's a millisecond where you ask permission, where the thought is, do I say this or do I not say this? Okay, well, see it. And then just don't go there. It's that some of the course that actually uses the phrase that don't go there. How simple could it be? But you got to see it first, and you got to think about why would I want to say this? Why is this important? Do I need to say this? Right? And sometimes the ego will be so strong that it'll just push it out. It just push it right on out. But on the other hand, if it's like when my wife said, "Why didn't you say X to the doctor?" He says, "Because I knew that even a simple thing like that would have been an attack." Very simple thing to have said, but it would have been so regarded as an attack. All right? Anybody else? Okay, I was going to say, this is last, Lisa.
Hi. No, I just wanted to see if you could comment on forgiveness, on how the Course's perception.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I know that's like, a
Yeah.
30-second.
Yeah,
In 30 seconds or less.
I'm going to turn that off. You can hold on to it, just turn it off. Well, where this is all going is, that's where all this is going. As I said to Maurice earlier, we're going up to talking more in depth about forgiveness, because that's what happens with that, in answer to her question. You're just not going there. You're leaving it alone, right? So you don't say all that forgiveness is just letting it go. I mean, three little words, let it go. I mean, just let it go. Don't make so something happened. You want to make an issue of this thing that happened? You want to point it out? You want to analyze it? You want to talk about it? Or can we just let it go? And I might add, especially this is important in primary relationships. Because it's in the primary relationships that, we could get ourselves into trouble because they're primary. But I mean, they're ongoing and actively something that we're consistently engaged in. So that's why you let him be who he is, seek not to make of love an enemy. Let her be who she is, let it, the situation, be what it is. Who made you judge? Right? Any other questions? I'd like to do sometimes we do the Lord's Prayer to start. It's not the Lord's Prayer, but it's the Course's version of it. But I got to go really fast through the slides to get to it. I didn't get to knowledge, so I think what's going to happen is that next time I'm going to really get into knowledge more. And then, oh, shoot. Well, never mind.
I got it memorized. I can say it.
You want to say it for us? Or get the microphone. And anybody who's got it memorized as well, or kind of has it?
Who else has it memorized? You can say
Anybody?
it with me.
I think I probably have it. No. On page 350 in the text of the Course, there's a prayer that is often regarded as the Lord's Prayer in the Course, because you'll see why. It has a similar, but it's sort of a 21st century version.
Everybody close your eyes. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our real relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your love and your forgiveness. Let us not wander into temptation, but the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given us, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen.
You can see why that's called the Lord's Prayer from that. See you in August. Okay, and anybody who wants to meet at the tavern, just go on up. I'll be there in 20 minutes or so from now. Thank you for being here today. It's nice sharing the day with you.